Okay, so Dead Among the Depths, session 4. When last we left our motley association of kindred, we had yourself, Sonia. You were planning on paying a visit to Giuseppe Camino, who is a drug dealer in Santa Croce, who you asked your friendly neighbourhood Mr. Scarpace, the fixer. You said you need to work out a bit of aggression. He was like, actually, there's a drug dealer who sold me some like shoddy merchandise. I don't want him killing or anything like that, but if you could make it clear that trying to sell me like shoddy merchandise isn't a good thing to do, that'd be great. Thanks very much.
Yep.
So he set you on with that. We know that Franco Lombardo was planning to head to a computer place that his contact had put him in touch with in the Rialto, and he'd managed to persuade the guy to like stay open a bit late so he could get there, and he was going to drop off the laptops that you picked up that had the strange sort of puzzle on them, see if the guy could crack the security on them. And Franco was also going to buy you some security cameras for your communal haven, let's call it.
Yeah.
And we also had Aurelio, who was interested in the mausoleum for the architect of Venice, the man who was responsible for much of the rebuilding of the city after the Great Plague, and is now buried on, let's not beat around the bush, the cemetery island of San Michele. And Aurelio is found by summoning a sort of spectral gestalt entity that refers to itself as those whom God took too soon. He sent out the spectre, who investigated, determined that it was unable to find any evidence of the architect existing as an unquiet spirit, but it located that there was a mausoleum dedicated to him built on San Michele. Okay. And we are currently, I believe, let's see where we are. So I believe currently we are on the 3rd of January, which, in case you're interested, is a Thursday. Sorry, a Tuesday. And it'll teach me to keep up with what the dates were in 2012. So, before we do anything else, let's have each of you make a rouse roll as you rise in the evening to see what your hunger be like. Okay, so if you've got 0 successes, I believe we established that it automatically increases your...
It do, John.
Damn!
It's been doing that for me for a couple of sessions now.
Aurelio is the thirstiest bastard.
Yeah, he's really thirsty for that corpse sludge.
And that's it, man. He's thirstier than a superhero fan on Twitter, man. That's how thirsty he is. Okay. As you all awake for the evening, it's a waxing gibbous moon in the sky, shining down over the gently rippling waters that form the many canals and byways of Venice. So, you guys wake up in the evening. Aurelio, you probably wake up feeling a little bit parched, like hunger's sort of scratching away at your throat a little. You're feeling a little bit raw around the edges. Franco, you're feeling absolutely fine. There's always a little bit of hunger present because you are a kindred and that is your curse, but you don't feel too bad. It's about as low as it can be for a kindred without fully like draining the life out of someone. Sonia, you're feeling a little bit hungry, but yeah, you're not too bad.
I plan to solve that problem shortly.
I was going to say, I fed up quite a lot yesterday. So
Indeed you did.
With the party the previous evening, topped me up quite nicely.
Indeed. And as for a few moments, as you wake up, Franco, you can almost still hear some of the sort of gaudy melodies that you experience when you're out with the tourist anarch coterie the previous evening, and you catch a faint sort of maybe it's a bit of a lingering scent on yourself, or maybe it's just a wisp of a memory, but the sort of smell of cigarette smoke and booze and like cheap deodorant and perfume, and running underneath it all like a wine dark river, the delicious sweet vitae or blood of these mortals that were basically laid out like a ginormous buffet from which yourself and the others who were involved dipped in, sampled a little bit of, and then moved on. But yes, you all wake up, you're all together in the communal haven, unless you've bedded down elsewhere. Forgive me if that was the case, I honestly can't remember. Is everyone at the communal haven?
I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, in which case, you all awake roughly the same time. You notice, like, Aurelia was looking even a little bit more paler and drawn than usual, which is quite a feat in his case.
What time do we normally wake up? Have we decided that?
I would say you probably sort of... Well, do you know what?
So I believe it follows the sun, doesn't it?
It's the solar cycle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up...
It's only because I've got to get to this shop at 5:30, so I didn't know if I...
So,
in
it's winter, isn't it, in Italy?
Yeah.
So
January.
Oh yeah, January, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking up the sunrise times.
It gets dark a bit earlier, doesn't it?
Bum, 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 bum. Right, so you're looking at it starts getting dark sort of around about 6:30 in the evening.
Alright, I'd have had to arrange to get to him a bit later then, wouldn't I?
That's absolutely fine. Obviously we weren't sure of the exact times when we sort of sorted it out, but you would have known that in character, so you would have arranged for the appropriate time. So I'm going to say, instead of, as we said originally, like 5:30, you arranged it for 7, which still gives you that half hour to sort of wake up and scoot round there.
Yep. Cool.
Okay, so you've all awoken for the evening. Like I say, it's about 6:30 in the evening. You all meet up in the main lounge, I suppose you could call it, of your haven, and it's over to you if you want to talk about anything or you want to head off and do stuff. The ball's in your court.
Yeah, I mean,
Aurelia, we need to get you a suit.
Yeah, so did we already make arrangements as well, like Franco did, or?
For a suit? Not yet, no. We've got to decide what fits you.
Right, so I suppose that would be our sort of set itinerary item number 1 then.
Yeah.
Because we need to give them time to make it.
Franco's going to need the suit.
a new one. I mean, I've got
A new one.
but yeah, obviously.
A
I
new
need
one.
a
You want to
bit-
make a good impression. And where you go when he returns.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be some sort of rather upper class fashion boutique type place that's going to be open a bit later than the others, I'd imagine.
Okay, well, let's see if you would know of such a place. So I'm going to say, if anyone has it'll probably be wits, and investigation will be the default, but if you think you have like another skill that would be more applicable, like maybe streetwise, maybe performance, if you're going to a particularly sort of outre place. Whoever wants to
What
make
about
a roll.
etiquette?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now, Franco. Okay. So, I'm going to say that you guys put your heads together. Obviously, Sonia, you're used to sort of ingratiating yourself with the sort of finer things in life, you know, you're quite adept at disarming people with your looks, because they don't know. Obviously, you've got the dead soul of like a hardened mafia leg breaker lurking behind those demure looks. And obviously, Franco, you're pretty well moneyed up and well connected. So I think between the two of you, putting your heads together, you can probably think of a few places where you might be able to go late and get a suit. The easiest place to find one would be 𝐶𝐬𝐿𝐥𝐝, which is was once the main route into the city, but now it's like the main tourist area, which obviously does have its downside because it's full of tourists. However, a lot of the shops there, unlike the more traditional shops, are pretty much open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because they want to get that tourist money. And obviously a lot of well-to-do people come here, so a lot of these places cater to like fairly sort of well-moneyed visitors to the city. So you're like, oh, we want to find something showy but also like expensive and classy, 𝐶𝐬𝐿𝐥𝐝 is probably the place to go.
𝐶𝐬𝐿𝐥𝐝, which is en route to where Aurelio wants to go. So we can either suit him and boot him now, or suit him and boot him tomorrow. We can make an appointment today, and that way he's going to get the best treatment.
Yeah, the quicker we move, the better, I think, because we need to give them time to make it. We don't want to be stuck in my joggers when we need to go.
So I'll go get dressed, and we'll get you to the tailor.
And we'll just swing by the old computer shop on the way, just to drop off my IT gear.
And then once Aurelio and yourself with the tailor, I'm going to go and deal with something else.
Okay.
Pop out for a quick bite. Wink, wink.
A bite and a little bit of fun.
A knuckle sandwich bite.
No, more like a crowbar.
Oh yeah, you're sophisticated.
Things have moved on.
Mm-hmm. It's not like the old days when, you know.
I like some iron in my diet.
Yeah. Supplements.
Okay, no problem. So, after a bit of sort of thinking, you guys recall that there in 𝐶𝐬𝐿𝐥𝐝 there is an exclusive tailors known as Riolo's, which caters to the discerning gentleman and lady. You've probably heard a lot about them because, as we know, the modern iteration of Carnival is sort of gearing up. It's going to take place in a few months' time. But, you know, the publicity machine started rolling. And whilst the modern Carnival is a pale imitation of the originator, so that it's been resurrected purely for the benefit of tourism, basically. There are a few places in the city, Riolo's being one, who claim to have been in business since the originator of Carnival, when it used to be nobles and well-moneyed people going on the grand tour, and one of the last places they would visit as they were sort of on the return leg would be Venice, and they would often time it to arrive during Carnival. And the idea was that people would go out masked, and basically it was a night, well, more than a night in some cases, but it was at least a night of debauchery and fun, where, because everyone was masked and they took it quite seriously, you had to keep your mask on all the way through it, the normal social mores and sort of hierarchies were sort of thrown to the wayside for a few nights, and people within, as long as you weren't like killing people in the street or whatever, people could like revel and enjoy themselves without worrying about the consequences, effectively. And but it was still taken quite seriously. You know, people would wear very elaborate costumes, both for the purpose of sort of paradoxically disguising their identities, but also, you know, if you're rich, even though like you can't sort of tell people who you are, you could show that you are rich and that you're well off with the cut of your costume and the materials that were used. And some of these, the places still open in Venice, Riolo's being one, claim to have been around since then. Riolo's itself claims to have been providing suits and attire for gentlemen and ladies since those bygone nights.
Is this a first for you, Aurelio?
Of this nature, I believe so, yes.
Okay. Well, let them measure you. Try not to hit them.
I know how tailors work, yes. But
That's something.
Okay, so on the way there to the tailor's, you stop off at the computer shop. There is a slightly chubby guy with a beard wearing a t-shirt and sort of combat trousers. He looks a little bit annoyed and a little bit impatient. When you turn up Franco, he's like looking at his watch and he's like, oh good, I thought you weren't going to make it. He says, you're the guy, yeah? You've got some laptops you want me to have a look at?
That's right. Yeah.
He says, all right.
Nico told you I'd be coming, I assume.
Yeah. He told me. Can't say I like staying open this late, but you know, I do owe Nico one. You know, a favour's a favour. He says, but yeah, hand them over. He said, I can't promise. Obviously, I'm probably not going to get to it tonight. He says, I'll have a look at them tomorrow. He said, have you got a contact number I can get you on? And like, once I've got some news for you, I can give you a ring. Obviously,
Yep.
Until I've investigated, I don't know what the security's like. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get into it.
Yep, I shall give him my phone number.
Okay.
Yeah, any information, just drop me a message or give me a ring.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, it'll probably be is there any sort of time you prefer me to like contact you, or?
Well, yeah, I'm normally busy during the day, so sort of once sort of night time comes, normally things start calming down for me. So yeah, after work would probably be best.
Right, no problems. Like I say, obviously it's not going to be tonight. He says absolute earliest I'll get round to it would be tomorrow, and I'll give you a ring tomorrow evening. But like I say, I won't bother giving you a call until I've got some news for you.
No, sounds good. Nico says that you're the man for the job. Then
he says, well,
interesting.
I've got the skills to pay these particular bills, and like I said, I do owe Nico one. He says, leave them with me. I'll sort it out. Like I say, if I look at it and I'm like, oh, this is going to take me like weeks and weeks, I'll give you a ring to like let you know and see if you still want me to carry on. Because obviously, if you do want to take it to someone else, you know, you're the customer.
Yep.
That's fine. But if I think it's going to be a long time, I'll give you a ring and let you know, and you can decide what you want to do. Otherwise, I'll call you when I'm in.
Oh yeah, I look forward to your call.
Right. I'll probably speak to you soon then. And he sort of opens the door of the shop and heads back in. You see him like put the light on inside, and you hear like a bit of stuff being moved around as he's obviously like putting his laptops down.
Yep.
Okay. And then presumably you guys are going to move on to the tailor's shop in 𝐶𝐻𝐬𝐿.
Yep.
Okay. So you get to, following the sort of directions that Franco and yourself have worked out between you, Sonia, you eventually get to quite an old, it's like in one of the sort of old narrow back streets of 𝐶𝐻𝐬𝐿, which the main sort of thoroughfares through 𝐶𝐻𝐬𝐿 are gaudy and touristy as you like, but there are still these narrow sort of back streets where some of the more traditional shops that are a bit more off the beaten track still exist. And as you start edging your way down these narrow corridors, for want of a better term, these narrow alleyways, you eventually see what appears to be a fairly small, unassuming shop. It has like a large sort of glass window front. You can see there are tailors' dummies, some with sort of like the male cut with suits on, some with like more of a female shape with dresses and such like on. There are numerous masquerade masks of intricate and fancy designs hanging in the window, and above the window there is a sort of large wooden panel that looks as though it's worn away and slightly chipped with time, and as you peer at it you can see that there are the faded remnants of letters that must have once been exquisitely lined with gold gilding, and it says Riolo Puttanesca.
Well, let's see what they've got to offer.
Okay, you heading in?
One hopes that this is indeed a tailor and not something else.
Okay, who's heading in first?
I'll go first.
Okay, you push the door open. There's a little like bell on one of those springs that sort of goes bring as you push the door open, and you head into this fairly sort of small, sort of quite sort of old-fashioned looking shop. As you look to your left as you go in, you can see there's like a couple of those small curtained off sort of changing areas, you know, the little alcoves built into the walls with a little curtain rail in front of them, and there are all manner of clothes on dummies and hangers and stuff like that, ranging from smart suits in the modern style to fanciful ball gowns, harlequins outfits, or carnival stuff, but all of them appear to be immaculately designed, even the sort of off-the-rack stuff, for want of a better term. After a few moments, as you all walk in, you hear this old voice say, yes, hold on a second, and you see an old man walking out of the back of the shop towards you. He has slightly greying hair and a deeply lined face. He's wearing a fairly smart suit. Almost looks vaguely reminiscent of an old sort of naval uniform. And he has a slightly wispy white beard and sort of receding hairline and quite prominent ears. As he walks towards you, and he appears to be squinting slightly, as though he might be slightly short-sighted. He walks out and he says, Madame, enchanted, and he leans down to kiss your hand, Sonia.
Oh, definitely offer him my hand.
He very politely and demurely sort of brings it to his mouth and then releases it. And he says, gentlemen, and he holds out a hand towards each of you.
Yes. Good eve.
He shakes your hand. You see him sort of like, he raises his eyebrows slightly as he feels the cool touch of your hand. So I'm assuming that you've not put on blush of health, given your hunger status. And then he obviously he holds out a hand towards you, Franco, as well. He's like,
I
Sir?
try and keep my distance so that his eyesight hopefully won't detect any sort of.
He says, it is always a pleasure to deal with special customers like yourselves. Tell me, how may I serve you this evening?
These two gentlemen require a suit, and I would like a ball gown, please.
I see. Well, then you have certainly come to the right place. If it is not too... Are you looking for an off-the-rack number, or were you thinking of something more custom-made? Obviously,
certainly tailored.
Splendid choice, madam. Splendid choice. Of course, that will be slightly more expensive. I only mention this so that you know what you're getting. I don't want anyone to think that I'm pulling the wool over their eyes or anything like that.
Can I use my heightened senses, John?
Yeah. What is it you're trying to determine?
Whether this person is in fact a human.
Okay. I'm just trying to remember how heightened senses work, to be honest. It's been a while.
I say, I think my stuff would have kicked in by now if he wasn't.
Okay.
Because he's got the beast, sort of, sense the beast.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you both now, with Sense the Beast, Franco, you can sense that this guy, there's something about him, but he's blatantly not a vampire, because, like, you can, like, smell the beast in a vampire. You've got that beast locked within your own breast. It's something that's familiar to you. And there's something similar about this guy, but, like, it's nowhere near as strong. It's like you're walking around with like a can of like Red Bull in your pocket, and this guy's got like a sort of caffeine sugar-free version in his pocket, but it seems vaguely familiar or vaguely similar. Now, I'm going to look up the Auspex one because I can't remember exactly what it does.
Page 249, John.
Thank you very much. 249. Here we go. Heightened senses. Adds their Auspex rating to all perception rolls if exposed to extreme sensations. May be overwhelmed. Okay, so you will have to make a roll for this. So it's wits plus resolve. Sonia, but you do get to add your Auspex rating to it. Well, actually, hold up a sec. Actually, I'm reading that wrong. It doesn't have to be a wits resolve roll. It's a perception roll. So what are you trying to determine about this guy, and how are you trying to determine it? Because that'll determine what the perception roll is.
Basically, I'm looking at his heart rate and breathing pattern for his age.
Okay. So I'm probably going to say that's possibly, it's either wits investigation or wits medicine. I think you're looking at. You could maybe say awareness if you wanted. But yeah, you make that roll and you get to add your Auspex rating as a modifier to it.
Okay, wits medicine. And 1.
Three successes. Okay. So you can tell that this man, Riolo Putanasco, does indeed have a heartbeat. He has a strong pulse. In fact, the thing that sort of you find slightly odd is, given his age and his appearance, you would expect his heart rate to be a little bit weaker, his pulse may be a bit weaker because of age, but he has like this sort of strong heartbeat and pulse of like a man in his like mid-20s, even though he's blatantly sort of, he looks like he's knocking on 60. And you notice that as you sort of, now you're paying more attention, as he moves, he's not sort of hobbling around like he's an old man. He's like, again, he's like moving around quite sort of swiftly. He's like taking your measurements as you stood there, and he's chatting away. And I say he seems to have the energy and the sort of a surety in his movements of a man easily like 20, 30 years his junior.
Now, we are aware of ghouls, aren't we?
Yes. You are all aware that as we've said previously, someone drinking blood from the same vampire develops these artificial feelings of attraction to them, and if a vampire feeds someone their blood, a sort of a thin sliver of their vampiric power passes into that person, and they become a sort of bonded servant / slave known as a ghoul, where they have some of the vampire's weaknesses, like, you know, they might feel a vague sort of whisper of a vampiric frenzy, but it's it's mild compared to what a vampire experience is. A ghoul getting into a frenzy might be a bit angry and a bit shouty for a bit. He's not going to like tear someone's head off like a vampire might do in the grips of hunger frenzy. But they also only get a little whisper of the power, so they might be a little bit stronger. They might be a little bit faster, but it's nothing compared to the power of an actual vampire. But they can go out in the daytime, so they are useful servants.
So I will say to him, so is there no family discount?
He says, but of course family is an important thing. However, if, as a member of the Puttanesca family, if I've learnt nothing over the years, it's that the La Familia respect the ways of business more than anything else.
Excellent.
So I'm afraid it is our policy to not give discounts. However, you may be sure that my finest efforts will be lavished on the outfits that I will be designing for yourselves. I will not. These will be no trifles like I would give to tourists or I would hand off to my juniors. These will be crafted by my own hand, and I've been working in this business for over 40 years. There is not a lot I do not know about the fine art of sewing, mending, stitching. I am sure you will be pleased with what I designed for you.
Oh, that's already most satisfactory. Anyway, I shall leave you with these gentlemen, and I shall return tomorrow to measure for the dress.
He says that will not be necessary. Although I appreciate the offer, I have taken a visual measurement while we have been stood here. As I say, I've been in this business for over 40 years. It does not take me long to appropriately size up a person. What I would suggest, dear lady, is that I create the suits and the dress, and then we will, once they are created, we will have you in, and we will make the last few minor adjustments that will make it just so.
It's fine with me.
Is there any particular time scale that you require this for? I assume, and apologies if I am ignorant, but I assume you are, and he smiles almost as though to himself, I assume you are to be attending a large family gathering soon.
This is correct, yeah.
Splendid. Now, as you have said, family is of course of paramount importance. Would you care to rest and take, and again he smiles a little bit, but in a sort of genuine, quite warm, sort of friendly way, would you care to sit and take refreshments whilst I go and get some swashes of fabric for you to choose from? Your pale friend over there indeed seems quite famished.
Yes.
It's not as if we are going to go anywhere else.
Of course, if any of you have particular dietary requirements beyond the obvious, I'm sure that most reasonable requests can be met. You have but to ask. As you said, family is very important.
No, I have no desire to hurt your staff.
That is not an issue. My refreshments will not be provided by my staff. They will be provided by people of little import.
Yeah. Then I would like really urgently to hurt somebody.
I apologize for the directness, I'll say to the master of the house.
Well, that was not, dear lady, that was not the sort of a refreshment that we had in mind. I was thinking more of a nourishment for the body rather than for the soul.
No, I'm already scheduled for a feeding, thank you.
Very, very good then, very good. Well, if you would care to return here tomorrow evening, I'm sure I can have the rough designs ready for the few final tweaks, and then it'll probably be another day or two to fully sew the finished items together, if that's satisfactory to you.
That's fine. Something in silk for myself. I believe either linen or cotton for the two gentlemen.
I trust the maestro to select.
And since you are going to such an august gathering, and I merely suggest this as an option to you, obviously your wishes are paramount. You are the customers after all. Do you simply wish for a fine suit for the gentleman and a fine ball gown for the lady, or do you wish for something that makes more of a statement? I am aware that at such gatherings, even though, shall we say, the fires of family disagreements have burned low recently, I am aware that there is still a certain competitive edge to such family gatherings.
I'll always make a statement.
For my part, I gesture at my cassock. One could say that I am a walking statement, so perhaps we might forego this and allow me a bit of masquerade at the ball.
A splendid idea, sir. I was going to suggest if you wish to make an elegant statement, I assume you are all attending the same gathering since you all wish for outfits. Might I suggest that you pick a theme that will be subtly reflected in all of your outfits, which would make a statement that you are all there together, as well as each of your outfits complementing the other. Now, what that theme would be, I would of course leave to yourselves. After all, you know yourselves and each other better than a mere tailor such as myself.
I believe the theme should be the moon, considering how many colours and shades you can get, especially off the sea.
I was about to say water, so I suppose we'll count 2 votes for moon.
Well, how about we say reflections of light as a
Excellent.
theme?
You are the artist.
Splendid. Well, as I said, if you call in tomorrow evening, I will have the rough mock-ups designed by then. I will spare no expense working through the day tomorrow to get these ready with all the artistry my old hands can muster. And I'm sure
to be clear, sorry, to be absolutely clear, don't make another cassock.
No, of course not, sir. Of course not.
That has been an issue sometimes.
I understand that.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. Well, is there now that our business is concluded? Is there anything else I can do for you, gentlemen, lady?
No, just pass on my thanks to your owner.
Ah, yes, of course. You are most kind. Well,
So
I trust you have a pleasant evening.
Thank you. Just leave the shop.
Okay. Sorry, you were going to ask...
Yeah, I was going to ask, just to confirm that the plan was that Sonia's going to go, attend to business, and we're going to stick around for the process.
Swatches.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Franco and Aurelio sticking around here, and he's basically showing you all these different materials. Most of them sort of like fairly iridescent, so they could actually like reflect light and stuff like that. So trying to find stuff that fits in with your theme of like moonlight. So he's showing you a lot of fabrics where he's saying, oh, we'd use a more normal fabric, but we could accent it with this, which at certain angles would catch the light and cause a silvery shimmer, which would be reminiscent of moonlight shining on water. And he's giving you like the big spiel and the sell on all these different bits of cloth. So, Sonia, I presume you are heading over to Santa Croce.
I am.
Okay.
I've got some business to attend to.
Not a problem. So you head over one of the bridges over the Grand Canal, and you start making your way into Santa Croce. And you will know without a shadow of a doubt that this is one of like the 6 sestiere or districts of Venice, and you will know for reasons which will become obvious. During the 11th century, it was administered by a Hungarian nobleman and crusader knight, Giovanni. That's why you would know about it.
Yep.
Member of one of the biggest Christian families in Hungary. This is also the only district that you are legally allowed to drive a motor vehicle in Venice. And because basically off to the west of it is an artificial island called Tronchetto, which has basically been made entirely so that tourists and visitors who come over on the sort of main road across the bridge that leads into Venice, they pretty much by law have to like park all their vehicles here and then move on into the rest of Venice and use like the boats and stuff on the canals, but you're allowed to like drive around Santa Croce and stuff like that. So as you head into this district, you start for the first time in your recent wanderings through the city, you start to hear the sound of motor vehicles and cars. You know that this is home to like the only bus station and car parks in Venice. Most of the tourist attractions here are on the sort of eastern part of the quarter, and a lot of tourist stuff is around here because it's basically the only place you can get to without having to rely on like expensive water taxis and stuff like that. And you would know as a local that way back in the bygone eras of Venice, actually there used to be a huge swamp in this entire area and to the west of it, known as the Luprio Swamp. But when Venice was expanding, they like reclaimed huge tranches of land from the swamp, and eventually that culminated in Tronchetto, this huge artificial sort of car park island, pretty much. So as you head into this area, like I say, it's quite touristy, it's full of cars, it probably looks most like a metropolis that you might find anywhere else in the world, whereas the rest of Venice has its own sort of like unique character. And the further west you go into Santa Croce, the more the sort of uniqueness of Venice sort of fades away a little, and it starts to become more like your sort of standard metropolis, you know, like your asphalt roads, your cars, your bus stops, your tourist hotels, stuff like that. And obviously, unsurprisingly, it's also a haven for petty criminals, drug dealers like Mr. Camino, who all seek to make a profit one way or another of the seething mass of tourists that head through this area. And you would probably know as a local that there's a bit of a sort of unspoken understanding amongst most of the people in Venice for sort of like minor crimes, you know, pickpocketing, a bit of like low-level drug dealing and stuff like that, where basically if it doesn't really like hurt the tourist trade to any degree, a bit of a blind eye tends to get turned to it. Yeah. Because it's not really like Venetians who tend to get affected by it. It's just sort of like tourists, and it's like, oh, someone gets their wallet nicked. That's not really going to like dent the tourist trade as a whole. So as long as you're not causing massive waves and you're just doing like minor league stuff, like a bit like selling a bit of weed and stuff like that, bit of a blind eye turned to it pretty much even by the civilian police force, just because there's that many tourists coming and going that it's really not worth investigating all these little claims. So it's become a bit of a haven for these drug dealers. Now, you've been given sort of directions as to where 𝐿𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐸 normally hangs out. And I'm going to, since this is someone that you're potentially might be interacting with in the future, I'm going to throw this open to you. We know this guy's a minor drug dealer who's recently been trying to like make himself a few more profits by like cutting his produce a little bit more than he might have done previously. So what sort of place would he tend to hang out? What sort of like place might he regularly do business in, or might he frequent?
Let's have a quick look at this. It's Costello, isn't it?
That's correct. It's Santa Croce we're in.
So I would say he's most likely hanging out near the car parks.
Okay. And what I'm going to do now, in a thing that I'm stealing off Johannes, that here he stole off me and I probably stole off somebody else, as we did last night in Stars Without Number, I'm going to ask each of you three to come up with like one little thing about this guy. It could be like something about how he looks, something about how he acts, maybe like a bit of clothing he wears or people he hangs around with. Just one little aspect or a little point of interest about this fella, 𝐿𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐸. We've established that he hangs around this sort of artificial car parks in Santa Croce. We know he's a low-level drug dealer who was recently trying to like get himself a bit of a leg up and make more profits by like cutting his stuff. He seems to have like run afoul of some of the slightly more higher up criminals who aren't too fond of what he's doing.
I'd say he's a bit ratty looking.
Okay. Ratty looking. Okay.
Maybe it's all the time he spends on near the water.
Yeah. Okay, so Franco and Aurelio, what's one other thing about him?
You got something going, Darren?
Yeah, I was going to say he's probably had too much of the product himself over the years.
So he's been getting high on his own supply.
Yeah, but he's got a bit of a sort of nervous twitch that's developed. And that obviously gets worse the more nervous he gets.
Okay. Nervous twitch. Yeah, we can do that.
So he's a ratty, twitchy drug dealer.
Yeah.
Who's
Could be too hard to
been-
spot, should he?
No, walk it up.
I don't know what the scope here is, but
Well, just try it. Worst, I'm going to say, let's turn it down a bit.
I was gonna say, your boy's a ghoul or a revenant. How do we feel about that?
I'm going to take that idea. I'm going to put a little bit. I'm fine with that. I'm going to put a little bit of a twist on it, though. I won't tell you what the twist is, just to keep it interesting.
Yeah,
But
I was thinking, like straight up revenant, maybe even something that we could point to as like, oh, this guy is like an actual known quantity as far as our knightly society goes, but maybe it's not apparent. I will leave that up to John because he's got some secret ideas now about that. Yeah.
Indeed, I've got a few possible ideas as to what he could be. Although, as is always the case with these things, I'm always like, oh, does this thing still exist in the current game that I'm thinking of? But
probably not like in intricate detail. In any way, like my whole point was that he's got ties leading from him, like further down somewhere else, because of more interest.
Okay, that is absolutely fine. So, as you follow the directions you were given, you eventually track down this fellow, this Giuseppe Camino, to the edge of a car park. As you approach out of a side street, Sonia, you see he's actually stood by a car that appears to be, it's got foreign plates on it, so presumably they're tourists inside. They've pulled up next to him. You can see he's sort of like, he's leant over on the sort of window, sort of talking to them, and he's like leant in. You know, you recognise the pose, so like small objects can be like passed across without drawing too much attention. However, you do notice that occasionally, as we've said, he seems to have a twitch or a bit of a tremble to him. You know, like some of his joints will sort of like twitch spasmodically.
Yeah.
But he finishes his conversation with the people in the car, and then in English he says, "Wow, you have a great time," and he sort of pats the car on the side, and the car speeds off into one of the few roads that line Santa Croce. You see him turn around, and he's literally holding like a handful of euros notes in his hand, and he's sort of like flicking through them. Then he like puts them in his pocket of his jacket. He gives another little twitch, and he starts sort of heading off.
I shall head towards him.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to react as you're openly walking towards him.
Yeah, just openly.
Yeah,
I'm tiny. I probably.
Oh
look
yeah,
like
yeah.
Easton.
You start walking towards him. He genuinely doesn't seem to pay you any attention. He's just like going as though he's going to like walk past you.
Yeah. As we're getting close, I'll just whisper to him. A mutual friend says I'm able to get some things from you.
He turns around, and at this point, can you make me a... Let me just see if you've got a relevant skill. Yeah, can you make me a wits occult roll? Okay, 2 successes. As he turns towards you, for a moment, just for a split second, for a moment, his eyes appeared to go dark, as though the black part of his eyes had sort of grown to like completely cover the whites of his eyes. They're like entirely black, but it's literally for a moment, and then he blinks and they look perfectly normal. And
right.
he looks over at you again. He sort of gives a bit of a twitch, and he says, "And what is it you want?"
Powder.
He twitches again and says, "Well, if you've got the money, I've probably got what you want."
Well, let's just keep moving before the police turn up. There's a couple around the corner.
All right. Before we go anywhere, though, I mean, don't mind me saying this. You can't be too careful in my line of business. Let's see the colour of your money.
I'll just hold out a roll of money.
Yeah, you like pull out a roll of money, and he's like, "Yeah, that'll do it." And he says, "Right, where do you want to go?"
Just round the back here, away from the... It's powder. It's not meant to be.
He says, "Hey, I just provide it. What you choose to do with it, it's not my business."
Oh, it's for a party of foreigners. It's fine.
Right, lead on. And he
I'll lead him round the back and away and
follows after you
into a secluded spot.
Yeah, follows along with you. And at which point he takes that effect for like a small baggie of white powder from like the inside of one of the inside pockets of his coat.
Yeah.
And he sort of holds it out to you between his 2 fingers.
I look like I'm going to pass the money over, but I'm going to grab his hand and just squeeze with the potence.
Okay, now, obviously we're not technically in a combat here. You've got him entirely by surprise. In terms of your potence, I can see you've got lethal body. So basically, how much sort of hurt are you trying to put on this guy? Are you trying to like, break his arm? Are you just trying to like?
I'm literally trying to break his hand. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to try and break as many bones as possible.
Okay. Yeah. So you start squeezing his wrist, and you actually feel the bones start to creak inside his arm, and then you start to feel them like fracture underneath your vice-like grip as you squeeze with this supernatural potence. However, the guy, although he twitches a little bit, he doesn't scream or anything. He doesn't like, make any sound. And eventually you carry on squeezing, presumably. You hear,
yes, mate.
You hear a sort of cracking sound, and you're pretty sure you've just broken his wrist. And at that point, he utters a sound, and he says, "That's going to be inconvenient."
Be even worse if I take your legs.
Yeah, that'd probably set me out of business for a night.
Mm. Why are you cutting product?
Well, he sort of looks at you like you're a bit simple, to be honest. He's like, well, to make more money, obviously.
But the people that actually run this town, they don't appreciate you cutting anything.
He's like, listen, love. And you're still sort of holding his hand, which is sort of flopping around like bonelessly.
Yeah. He's
like, look, I can tell you've got some super secret special sauce, and you're obviously quite capable of putting the hurt on somebody. So I'll say that I'm impressed. You've got all this strength in a cute little tiny package. That's great. He says, but look, let me tell you something about the people who run this town. He says, all they're interested in is getting a big piece of the pie for themselves. And I don't see any reason why I shouldn't carve myself off a nice little slice of that pie for myself. What I'm doing doesn't really do any harm to their business. After all, I mostly sell to tourists who don't know shit all about what they're getting. So if I cut the powder down a bit and I make 3 sales instead of 1, I get 3 times the money. It's mostly going to tourists. Who the fuck are they going to complain to? What are they going to do? Go to the police and say, oh, this like low-level drug dealer I was dealing with ripped me off with these illegal drugs I was buying. And to be honest, most of them don't even know the fucking difference anyway. They snort it. They're probably drinking a load at the same time. They get a bit high, a bit happy, a bit giggly. They have a bit of a drink, a bit of fun times. Everyone's happy. I get my 3 sales. I'm happy. Who's hurt by it? He's like
those above.
He's like, to be honest, love. He's like, if you're looking for a villain or someone to take your anger out on, like, I'm not even in the same pond as like the real villains in this place. He's like, you'd be far better served taking out your anger on somebody else. He's like, look, I'm just a simple man trying to make his way in the world, trying to make as much money as I can so I can live as comfortably as I can. And really, when we look at it, what harm am I doing to anybody?
Oh. I'm just going to start hitting him.
Yeah, not a problem. He doesn't really put up any resistance. You carry on sort of smacking him about, and there's like cuts and like bruises are like starting to appear on anything. He pretty much like carries on like chatting to you between like you like punching him, and he's gradually like bruises are starting to come out on him. His twitch is starting to get more pronounced. There's like probably a bit of blood coming out of the corner of his mouth. At one point, you think you hear like as you sort of punch him down to the ground, you think you hear like a loud crack, as though like maybe like one of his ribs has fractured or something like that. And after a little bit, like sort of the 4th or 5th time, he like picks himself up off the floor. You notice he's like standing at a bit of an angle, like maybe his like hips not.
I'm not going to let him get up, John. I'm just going to keep on hitting him.
Yeah, he starts trying to climb up. You see his like hips looking a bit janky, but yeah, you beat him back to the ground again. And he's like, literally, like, as you're smacking him, and his voice is starting to sound a bit distorted now, because like his jaw's like mashed up. And he's like, "Oh, I take it you just looking to like to pound someone."
I'm just gonna stomp on him now.
Okay. Yep. You stomp on him. You stomp on him. After a while, he stops talking. Then, after a few minutes, he sort of looks up at you, and this time you notice like a look of panic come onto his face, and he lets out an ear-piercing scream as though suddenly he's like feeling all the pain of his injuries. And then he, in a quite a different voice, he starts sort of babbling, and he's like, "Who the hell are you? What am I doing here?" As he's sort of like flopping around like a gutted fish, like blood like leaking out of all these injuries. And he looks quite bewildered all of a sudden.
Well, so I've probably broken a few ribs.
Yeah, you think you've fractured a couple of his
I've
ribs.
definitely fractured his pelvis.
His pelvis is fractured. You've definitely broken his wrist. One of his arms is sort of like the elbow, sort of like bent at a bit of an angle. He's not looking too clever, to put it mildly. Although you do notice he seems to have stopped. Bizarrely, he seems to have stopped twitching.
And I'm just going to walk away.
As you walk away, he sort of calls after you in again a voice that doesn't sound like the guy you were talking to a few moments ago, and he's like, "Look, I don't know who you are or why you've done this, but please, call an ambulance. I'm injured. Somebody, help me! Somebody!"
I'm going to go and knock him out.
Yep, you head back, knock him out.
And how close is the nearest canal without being seen?
It's pretty far away, because obviously you're in the district that's got all the
Yeah,
roads. And you just sort of like stood over this fellow, sort of going like, "Can I make it to a canal and dump him in before anyone like sees me?" When just over your right shoulder, you hear the voice of 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 say, "Wow, that was pretty impressive."
Sorry?
You're stood over the broken body on the floor, and from over your shoulder you hear the voice of 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 still sounding calm as ever, say, "Well, got to give it to you, that was pretty impressive."
I'll turn to look at this voice.
You turn to look, there is nobody there. Seemingly from thin air, you hear the voice again say, "Well, I think he's done for."
Absolutely right. Still, I'm sure you'll have fun finding another host.
Perhaps, but if it's any comfort to you, it'll take me a while to find another host. I'll have to reset up my business, remake all my contacts. So, if it makes you feel any better, you have inconvenienced me.
When I figure it out, I'll kill you.
Why?
You've annoyed me.
Still, it seems to me a poor reason to kill someone simply because they've annoyed you without even trying to get along with them. After all, I've been in Venice for quite some time. I've generally found, in terms of business, it's better to not make enemies, so I generally try and avoid it. Okay, I might have miscalculated how annoyed some people were going to be with my business practices, but again, it seems a poor reason to kill somebody.
Not really.
Well, as you say, if I can't dissuade you of the fact that there's not a great deal I can do about it.
So true. Well, I'll make certain to look out for you.
Well, of course, and if you're dead set on making an enemy of someone who can walk around invisibly and doesn't have to sleep half the day away like yourself, who am I to point out the potential foolishness of that action?
You talk a lot. That's what's annoying.
Wow, unfortunately, a rather beautiful and aggressive young woman has deprived me of the ability to physically interact with people and really do anything but talk. It wasn't my choice, but we have to deal the hand we're dealt.
Oh. I might be able to help you.
In what sense, sir? Has my annoying banter dissuaded you from your need to consign me to oblivion?
Currently.
Well, I do hope so. As I've said, I've always thought it was better to make friends and business acquaintances than enemies. After all, surely even your kind, long-lived as you are, must appreciate that in a life as long as yours, why would you want to make unnecessary enemies and inconvenience yourself? No, okay, I'm perfectly willing to let bygones be bygones. You've given me a slap on the wrist, and I will amend my business practices once I start up again accordingly.
See, that's all you had to say.
Well, but that's considerate said.
That's why they have people like me. If you're not following their rules, they don't want you.
I'm not sure I'd use the word people, but I take your meaning.
Well, they are people. Mortal people.
Well, yes, we were all mortal once, But and I can't complain about them. I mean, after all, I do make my living off them, so and in more ways than one.
Right.
Besides, it's either find someone to possess within a reasonable amount of time, or you're going to get drawn down into the maze down below, and well, I don't fancy that if you're to be honest. So I won't annoy you any further. I can already feel it start to tug me, so I'm going to take my leave now and go and start looking for another suitable home.
Well, when you find one, maybe we can talk. You have my word. We will talk.
Okay. Is there any way I can get in touch with you?
I'll give him the number of a burner phone, John.
Yeah, absolutely. You will have no problem getting a burner phone. Yeah, you give him the number of a burner phone, and he says, yes. He says, I've got to admit, the whole sort of a tiny, beautiful woman, but with infinite cosmic power. I kind of like the look. I can see what you're going for. I might consider that myself when I'm looking for a new vehicle. Anyway, I've got to get going. Like I say, I can feel it tugging me. I'll see you soon. And as you say that, the voice starts getting like fainter and fainter, like the presence is like receding from you, and eventually it disappears.
I'm going to go and kill the person, and then use ashes to ashes on it.
Yeah, not a problem. You kill the person, and it's oblivion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hold on a second, I'm looking at it at a minute.
And I believe that gets you a stain.
1 rouse check. stamina and oblivion versus stamina and medicine or fortitude.
Okay, we've pretty much got like an unlimited amount of time, so I'm willing to say it succeeds. How does it work in terms of Johannes, because you do this more than anyone else? How does it work in terms of getting a stain?
If you roll for the thing,
Okay.
ones and tens on the roll give you a stain.
Okay, so we will have you make a roll. You're not going to fail. It's just see if you get any of the like ones and tens.
Okay, so we need that's a stamina and oblivion.
Yep. And basically, if you fail the roll, we'll say you still do it. It just takes you a lot longer.
No.
Okay. No, so you're good. Or possible bestial failure. No.
What's the symbol for the critical fail?
The skull is a 1, I believe. And the
Oh yeah, because
the sword is a 10.
It is because it says potential bestial failure, and that happens when you got
Yeah.
a 1 and maybe.
So is it a stain for each, or is it just one stain?
It's the one stain. Yeah.
Okay, so you get a stain which we're marking as a sort of dash on your humanity.
That's all right. I have just hideously murdered somebody.
I've just put that on there for you. Indeed, you have. So you're pretty much guaranteed to get a stain anyway. But yeah, you finish this person off. You call forth the powers of oblivion, and almost like one of those stop motion films of like plants or fruit rotting away, time is briefly, and the forces of decay are sped up on this body. It quickly withers and falls away in the best of Hammer horror movie Dracula tradition, falls in on itself and reduces to a handful of dust that blows away on the gentle night wind of Venice.
And then I'm gonna call up my man and say, consider him warned.
You call up Scarpace, and he's like, great, glad to hear it. You made it clear that I don't want any more of this funny business going
I've made
on.
it crystal clear.
Lovely. Well, hopefully he'll take the message, and we won't have any more trouble with him. I mean, after all, he does bring a fair amount of money into the operation, but he's just got to learn. But you know, if you're going to be part of a well-oiled machine like ours is, you've got
I would imagine if this is his first warning, he's going to go to ground for a little while.
Quite possibly. But let's hope when he pops his head above the water again, he'll have learned the most important lesson of doing business in Venice, that you've got to pay your dues.
Pay or die.
Quite right. Well, thanks very much, Sonia. I know I could rely on you to get the message across. If you ever need anything, just give me a shout.
You know I will.
All right, take care and we'll speak soon.
Have fun.
Hangs up. Okay. So what's the plan next, guys?
I need to feed. That's my plan. I was going to feed on the poor victim there, but no idea what was in their blood, so I can't do it. If they look remotely like a junkie, I can't go near it.
Fair. Okay, so what is your sort of method that you plan? Because we'll abstract this, so we're not dwelling on it. What is your planned tactic for feeding? Like, how do you plan to go about it?
My planned tactic is usually to find some form of BDSM service and just order somebody that can be playfully beaten, even though they won't be playfully beaten, but they'll forget about it.
Okay, so I'll say effectively you're trying to do like the sort of scene queen style of feeding. You know, you're trying to find someone of a particular scene that you can easily feed on. So the role for that is going to be manipulation plus persuasion. successes 4. Okay, that is easily enough. Now, you said you were trying to find a service. Are you trying to find like a club, or are you trying to find like an escort service, or
Like an escort service, it's a bit more discreet.
yeah, not a problem. You in the sort of seedier sort of area of Santa Croce, which caters to all the sort of perversions that tourists might bring with them. You
Also, an escort, I'm going to get a clean. They'll be clean-blooded, so it's fine.
you do indeed locate an escort service, and you are able to procure the services of a young woman, a young gentleman. It's up to you.
Let's have a gentleman.
Okay, not a problem. So I'm going to ask Darren, can you please roll me a D50? You may have to type that in manually. It's /R space D50. 13.
13.
Okay. So the person you end up with is a sort of late teens youth, dressed very much like they're into the sort of BDSM like clubbing scene.
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously trying to earn themselves like a little bit of extra money out of the tourists who are also into that particular scene. You arrange to meet up with them. They're not really surprised that you're asking for some like kinky stuff, because yeah, that's what goes with the territory. You probably spend a little bit of time, so meet them at a club, you spend a little bit of time there with them.
Yeah.
You eventually head off to somewhere private. You have the opportunity to drink from them. How much of your hunger are you planning to slake on them? Obviously 2 is the maximum non-harmful drink.
I just need to do the 1 dot,
Okay, yep.
but I've only got hunger 2, I think.
That would effectively only take 3 turns. Includes a licking the wound closed. You take a sip from them. They won't really remember it. You actually feel a little bit sort of hopped up after drinking their blood. You know, they've been in a club. They've been sort of dancing around. Their energy's quite high, and that's reflected in the resonance of their blood. They've also probably taken some drugs that have boosted that effect somewhat. And if you have, well, I know you have potence, you will receive, until your next drink, you will get a +1 on any dice pools associated with either celerity or potence.
Oh,
And like I say, you're
Probably
generally feeling like quite hopped up on this sort of like high energy blood, the sort of energy of like a night of partying and taking like drugs, all appears to be encapsulated in the resonance of this blood. And as you know, like how someone comes out of a club, and even like half an hour later they're still sort of like even though they've left the club, you've got that sort of effect going on from this blood.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like you can like hear an echo of like this mad night of clubbing that this young person's had.
I'm also going to make sure I didn't do too much damage to them, because I do have to literally cause them pain to feed. So
Yeah, and normally that would have been an issue. However, in this situation, basically because of the number of successes you got, I mean, you needed like 1 success, you got 4. You specifically targeted someone who was expecting that sort of pleasure pain thing. They probably did make a bit of noise because, you know, unavoidable given the pain of the carter bite, but they were sort of expecting that, and they're sort of like a bit into that. But that's also sort of part of what's contributed to this resonance in their blood.
that's fine.
But yeah, you part ways with them afterwards, and that's all fine and dandy. So while all that's going on, what are Franco and Aurelia up to?
We're obviously getting measured up for the old suits. I should imagine that won't take very much time with an experienced.
It doesn't take long at all, and you've chosen the material that you want. And obviously, before we get to probably like in a few sessions time where we're actually playing out the family gathering, if you want to pick out a picture from the internet or something similar of a suit you think would work for your character, obviously keeping the theme of sort of like reflected light in mind, feel free to do so, and that will be the suit that Mr. Riolo has produced, and it will be of exquisite quality because he is a master tailor, which unsurprisingly he has ties to the Giovanni family, as was now part of the Hecata, the Puttanescu being an offshoot of the Giovanni family. Obviously they like to look like sharp mafia business people, so it's not surprising that they've got a few sort of tailors on the payroll. Although you might be a bit surprised, Aurelio, to note that it's a Puttanescu, because they've always sort of had the reputation as like, oh, they're the sort of red-headed stepchildren of the Giovanni family. They're the sort of like low-level like thugs and leg breakers. So you're possibly a bit surprised to see one as a master tailor, but and yeah, he fits you up for the suits. He shows you the cloth he's going to use and the sort of designs, and then basically says, "Oh, again, if you come back tomorrow evening, I'll have the rough suits made, and we can do the final sort of taking ins and final tweaks, and then I'll just need to sew them up, and we'll be good to go."
Cool. Has Aurelio got to go feeding, or what's the situation there?
He's got a plan to go to the cemetery, which might as well be feeding, because that's kind of his thing.
And did you want me to tag along, keep an eye out, or assist in any way?
Sure, because I guess at this point, like, Sonia's going to be gone for a bit because she's doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so you're heading over to San Michel, the cemetery island.
That's the plan, yeah.
Obviously, as is the case when it comes to booking passage over there, you pretty much have to book one of these water taxis to get over there, and they're not difficult to find because people are often going there to like leave flowers and stuff like that. But yeah, you easily book one of these water taxis and you make your way over there. It's obviously artificial because it's pretty much this raised sort of square sort of concrete and soil island that is absolutely covered with various different memorials, gravestones. You can see that the island is like a very gentle, like sloping hill, so it's slightly raised in the centre, and you know that the more you go towards the raised areas, which are obviously further out of the water, the sort of more opulent the memorials start to look, as though like a premium is charged for the more secure, arguably, ground, whereas the sort of poor people and the common folk, they're sort of buried nearer the edges where the ground's at more danger from the waters and sort of a subsidence and stuff like that. But yeah, as you walk, there's quite a somber mood on this island, unsurprisingly, as you walk like ghosts yourselves between the gravestones. You see every now and again dotted about, there are people like laying flowers or sort of like grieving relatives. You can also see a number of other sort of boats when yours pulls in. Obviously you tell your boat to wait for you, which yeah, they're fine with. A lot of people just pay a boatman to bring them over here. They say, "Oh, wait for half an hour and we'll be back." It's a pretty standard thing. You can see a few other boats, no doubt, waiting for people to return to them, and you make your way onto the island. What's the plan?
So I know the location of the tomb.
Indeed you do.
Yeah. So to say,
Right, Franco, we are going to first make a stop, see about an old tomb.
and I'll start heading towards that. Now, is it going up to the opulent areas, or?
Yeah, it actually seems to be heading like directly towards the very center of the island, and as you as you sort of get near the location, the direction you've been given, which is obviously sort of, you know, like keep going past this memorial, or you'll see like a memorial with like stone roses on it, to turn left there, because like every landmark here is pretty much someone's grave. And as you continue following the directions you're given, you actually realise you must be like about dead centre on like the highest point of the island, and you see a large stone and marble tomb. And when I say large, obviously it's space is at a relative premium here, but it's quite tall, although the actual sort of frontage of it is fairly narrow because space isn't available. But it's been built upwards, and you, as you look at it, you see reflected in it some sort of echoes of many of the quite sort of Gothic churches that are built around Venice. You know, the sort of tall archways reaching up towards heaven. And outside of it is a stone statue, sort of life-size, of a man with a neatly trimmed beard, a bald head. He has one arm across his chest like this, and gripped loosely in his hand, all of this is stone of course and marble, is a scroll, and then a couple of what look to be like draughtsman's like pens or pencils coming out from between his two fingers, and then this parchment sort of like rolling down the right hand side of his body, and he's standing there sort of very imperiously, just sort of looking out through his stone eyes, as though he's like surveying the rest of this cemetery island.
Witness the architect of the city. Now,
looking about John, is there it's a very general thing here that I'm about to say, but to make an estimation of everything going on in the scene here, as far as, is this somehow relevant or resonant or clearly just indicative of the dark arts in any way? Like, I suppose what I'm saying is there anything to decode
Make me a wits occult roll.
around here? Yeah. Okay. Cults, wits. 4.
Four
And I didn't
successes.
flip out.
Indeed. Always a good thing. Okay. So at first you don't see much. However, as you move closer and you're looking at this statue, and you can see as you look past the statue that chiseled neatly into the stone door of the tomb, it says, "Here rests the great architect Andrea Palladio, father of the city." And then as your attention turns back to the statue, you eventually look down and you see that although it's quite faint and there's a little bit of sort of like moss growth and stuff like that on the statue, you can just about make out, although most of this stone parchment that cascades down appears to be like overgrown with moss, because that seems to be the side that's facing the sun, you can just about make out that there's some sort of design chiseled into the scroll, but it's pretty much entirely obscured by this moss that's grown over the top of it.
I'll fetch a scalpel from my suitcase, my little
Yeah, not a problem.
briefcase rather, and sort of start scraping off some of the moss.
Yep, you start scraping off the moss, and you can indeed see, although it is faded somewhat with time, there is indeed a design carved into it, and it seems to show a maze very reminiscent of the designs that you saw hastily sketched by the poor and perhaps possessed priest, Father Loredan.
very good.
And as you look at it further with that amount of successes, you notice that, as I've said, the sort of loose hand where he's got like the two sort of draftsman's pens coming out the top, you notice that the centre finger seems to be sort of extended slightly and is like pointing towards the maze on the scroll. something like that.
Yeah. The door situation.
Indeed.
What are we talking about lock-wise? Or any barricade?
Okay,
situation?
there doesn't appear to be a lock on it. The door appears to be made from a single large piece of like heavy stone. And that,
Yeah.
as I say, on the front of it is the legend I mentioned previously, and then in much smaller writing, so you've only seen it now as you're getting closer. Underneath it says, "Born in the year of our Lord 1508, and left us in the year of our Lord 1580."
Well, Franco, what is your estimation? Could we open this? Are you very strong, like 𝐛𝐮𝐢𝐥𝐝 is?
Probably not as strong as Sonia, but happy to give it a go. Unless there's a special technique to it.
I wouldn't know. It's a huge lump of stone. I would presume rolling it might be preferable, but
Okay, so I'm going to say if you want to get into it, it's going to be a strength athletics roll. Now, either of you can make that roll, and if the other is assisting, I will say they give like an extra dice to their pool. So it's up to you guys who you want to make that roll.
I mean, that's free for me.
Yeah, I mean, like Aurelio's just presuming full on that like Franco is going to be more capable anyway, so he'll be by default he's going to assume that, oh yeah, I'm going to be the wingman on this.
Okay, so if you make a strength athletics roll, you get a modifier of +1, and I'll tell you need 2 successes to be able to like half this out of the way because it's a big old block of stone.
Okay, I think that's right.
Yeah, not a problem. You sort of grunt a bit at first, and it takes a little bit to get it moving, but once you've sort of got it moving, its own weight helps you move it the rest of the way, and with a sort of a fairly loud sort of like creaking sound, you're able to sort of roll this stone slab to one side, and a waft of musty sort of decayed still air wafts out at you. It's obvious that like no one's been in here for quite some time, and as you look into the small chamber beyond, you can see that although there's not that much dust in there because no one's been in here, the whole place has an air of having remained relatively undisturbed for many a year. And you can see that despite the visual grandeur of this sort of Gothic mausoleum, inside it is a fairly simple recreation of like the nave you might find in a church, you know, where there'd be the small sort of 3 steps leading up to like a font, only in this case the small sort of stepped plinth leads up to what appears to be the actual sort of stone sarcophagus or coffin of the great architect Palladio. And again, the stone sarcophagus, carved on the top of it, is another representation of Palladio himself. It's probably slightly idealized, but it shows him sort of lying with his arms crossed as though he's sleeping atop the sarcophagus.
Okay. I will open my secret sight, John. Okay. I will try to sense the unseen as we get the view in the tomb. Now, if I click this, yeah, that's doing the thing. So, let's see which one I'm doing. I'm not looking at or trying to knowingly find something that is actively hidden, so I'm doing the other thing. So resolve and aspects, I think. So that's a that's an empty roll.
Okay. At first, you don't see anything. However, as you peer sort of more closely at the mausoleum, eventually you start to ascertain and sort of determine something that only you can see. And there appears to be a small amount of light, sort of bleeding out from under the cracks in the stone lid of the sarcophagus. Like there's a light inside, and a little bit of it's like spilling out.
Yeah.
Franco, you can't see any of this, I'm afraid.
Franco, do you believe in God?
I think there's something there.
And as you say this, there is, to your ears only, Aurelio, there is an incredibly loud boom, like an explosion. The lid of the sarcophagus, with this depiction of Andrea Palladio, flies off the sarcophagus. Obviously, you see that, Franco. The stone lid just sort of ejects itself off the top of the sarcophagus. Doesn't land anywhere near you guys, just sort of falls onto the floor. To you, Franco, inside the sarcophagus, you can just see what appears to be bones and the long decayed remnants of presumably this architect, like wrapped in a decayed burial shroud. You see no light or anything like that. To you, however, Aurelio, you see what appears to be a blinding light emanating from inside this sarcophagus. And as you sort of look inside, you see what appears to be a long sort of corridor leading down through the sarcophagus into what appears to be a long stone corridor that seems to move away impossibly far below the ground. And you know that the mausoleums don't go down that far, because the island doesn't go down that far.
Yeah, generally, because you... yeah.
And at this point, I'm going to ask, can you please make me a strength athletics roll?
Me?
Yep. You and only you.
Athletics strong. Here we go.
Okay, you'd get one success, however, so it's not a best
Okay,
failure.
well,
But
that's unfortunate for me.
for you and only you feel that as you're looking at this, it's as though the light from the sarcophagus is actually pulling you towards it, and you can feel your... Obviously, you're like leaning back, trying to sort of go against this, but you actually find yourself sort of like pulled like a few inches bodily towards the sarcophagus. And obviously, Franco, although you can't see the light or this tunnel, you can see Aurelio sort of leaning backwards as though we're like against like a great wind or a storm, and you actually see him slide forwards a few inches, and it's quite clear that like he's not moved himself, because he's like, and just being sort of dragged bodily forwards by some force that you can't see and doesn't appear to be affecting you in the slightest. You're just stood there like...
Yeah, I think at that point he'll try and grab hold of him.
Okay,
Assist him from
make
being
me
dragged
a strength
forward.
athletics roll.
Assuming that obviously he doesn't want to do that. Okay, let's try that.
Okay, success is 1. Yep. So you find yourself steadied by Franco grabbing hold of you, and eventually after a few minutes the light in the sarcophagus fades out and you feel this force that's pulling you ceases.
Whoa, what was all that about? I couldn't see nothing.
No, it is the sacred light. Franco, we may have stumbled onto something very significant. potentially very dangerous. And
Has the light receded completely?
It
Or-
has.
just hold on to my arm, would you? Follow me.
And I go forward, sort of taking one step at a time, holding one arm back so that Franco can grab it. And I'll just tentatively put a hand on the. It does stay open, that there's no more movement with the lid.
No, the lid is still lying on the floor. However, as you get nearer, with Franco anchoring you, as you now look in, with there being no light in there, you now see what I described to Franco, the sort of mouldering bones of presumably the architect wrapped in this decaying burial shroud. There is no sign of this sort of semi-luminous, cavernous passageway seemingly heading deep into the bowels of the earth.
I'll put a hand on, I guess, some of the foot bones, just to see what happens.
Okay, you do feel a sort of vague sense of unease, but like nothing remarkable happens. At this point, I'm going to ask you both make me a wits awareness roll.
Oh man, all this is rolling, John. It's
That's it, man.
very dangerous. You know,
I get messy up in this hizzle.
I have seen the face of God, Franco.
Okay, so let me just have a look at the old messy criticals. Boom, 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 boom.
7 successes for whatever reason.
Oh, that's right. This is the annoying thing that's not on my cheat sheet. Oh well, I will look it up.
Yeah, I'll search the PDF.
207.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yep.
Okay, so messy criticals. So we're going to decide what you end up with. You could gain one or more stains, you could breach the masquerade, you could lose it up from an advantage, or you could simply go for a fail.
Stains.
Okay, slap yourself
Tied
a stain
to-
on that.
Tied to like Aurelia doesn't realize it, but he is actively like eroding whatever he has left of himself by this sort of obsession with the supernatural. So that kind of
Indeed,
thing.
and it seems to you that as you sort of touch the bones of the architect, like some part of like the coldness of the grave seems to have seeped into your own bones and seems to like stay with you, despite the fact that the supernatural manifestations, whatever they were, seem to have ceased. So you're distracted by that. However, Franco, given that you're not distracted by like poking around with dead things, as a radio sort of leaning in, touching these bones, and for a few moments he almost seems to like freeze still, as though he himself is a statue carved of marble rather than an unliving creature. And he appears for a few moments to be like lost to what's going on around him. You hear from outside the tomb, you hear two female voices that appear to be getting closer. The first sounds like a young woman's voice, and it says, "Are you quite certain?" And then you hear what sounds like an old woman's voice saying, "Yes, of course I'm certain. Someone's been interfering with it. I can feel it in my bones." Very well then. Let's go and have... And then the voice stops as they obviously see that the stone has been pushed aside. And then you hear this crotchety old woman's voice shout, "Whoever you are, come on, get out of it." And as the old woman's voice is now shouting, and you've started to come out of your sort of reverie area, you recognise the old woman's voice as the voice you heard previously when you were in the the home of your poor boatman, and you were convincing him that his daughter had been taken bodily to heaven.
I'll handle this.
You sure?
Yes, quite.
And I'll, before I turn away though, because I presume they're going to wait for a bit if they're saying, come out.
Unfortunately, you're incorrect in your assumption.
Well, I guess
because the old woman's like basically coming out. It waits for like a nanosecond, and then like pushes away in, and the two of you both see this sort of hunched over old woman wearing what looks for all the world like a tattered burial shroud, and over her face she's wearing a mask of polished obsidian that is carved to resemble like the stereotypical sort of crone or witch, sort of pointed chin, hooked nose, furrowed brows, but it's all of polished black obsidian. And you can see these dark eyes glittering behind it as this sort of shrouded figure like stumps its way in and so looks around and obviously sees the two of you. It's not a very big room. Before the old woman has had a chance to say anything, you see sort of over her hunched shoulders as she walks in, like, you see a fairly beautiful young woman, looks to be in her late 20s, early 30s, long blonde hair, wearing a flowing white dress, quite a serene expression on her face, walks in after her. She looks a little bit exasperated as she's obviously like following after this old granny. Walks in afterwards, but then her eyebrows raise in surprise when she sees the two of you in there, and that's them. You have a chance to respond. They're not immediately like launching into attack you or anything. They've just sort of walked in and been like, "Ow!"
I reach into. Well, I suppose that's going to be in my little briefcase as well. I produce my mask and I slide it on my face. So said mask is, the style is in that sort of like beatific sort of statue, idealized death mask of allegedly my sire, who was lost to one of the historic purges when folks were killing the Harbingers and the Cappadocians. And it is sort of white marble streaked with gold. And I put the mask on to, we're all showing our club cards, right? Yeah. So, and I give a bow. Which is to say, this is my, I bought two things and I combined it into one mask. And it's the white gold mask that I have, which has the gold mask and the white mask.
And if I remember correctly, this was originally the mask of your sire?
Yeah, this is the death mask modeled on my sire, who yet lives.
Yep.
But it's the grand deception. It's a grand deception whereby my sire is pretending to be someone far younger, and maybe we'll get to that at some point. But my sire has died, and I have the death mask modeled on her face. So I have this like beatific sort of idealized, at rest face modeled on my sire.
And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that these two didn't see you wearing the mask previously.
No. I was au naturel because I was being a priest.
Of course, yeah. Okay, so as you pull out this mask as described and you put it on, the old woman, the hunched, well, you assume it's an old woman. The mask looks like an old woman, but obviously you can't see under the mask. The crone, I'll just call her, sort of goes, bloody hell, the mask of Sibylla. I've not seen that for a time.
I try not to make a big deal out of it. It is, after all, pride goes before the fall.
Well, you're not wrong there. And she seems like she's about to say something else when she's interrupted by an excited squeal from behind them, and what appears to be a 14-year-old girl with long dark hair comes running into the tomb. Obviously, you recognise Cara Salvati, although now she appears to be entirely free of the illness which was causing her such pain recently. She runs straight over to Aurelio, despite the mask, throws her arms around him. He says, "Oh, Father, it is you. I didn't think I'd ever see you again."
No, I think it's rather the other way around. We might be seeing a lot more now. For good or ill. I see you are recovered.
Yes. The two ladies, Lachesis and Atropos, at which point which is Lachesis, the blonde woman, bows, and then when she says Atropos, the old woman's like, "Yeah." So, yes, they've cured me of the disease that threatened me, and although it pains me greatly that I cannot see my father, they have allowed me to look in on him and see that he is indeed thriving. And well, the last time I looked, he seemed to have renewed his faith and was more devout than I have ever seen him. And from what the ladies tell me, I believe I have you to thank for that, Father.
Your father is a man of many sufferings, and I pray that he is rewarded and given what he is due in due time. And from the looks of it, his spirit is as strong as ever. I'm sure that you can be as proud of him as he no doubt is of you. But tell me, you are now Clotho. Is that not the one?
Yes, that's right.
With the needle?
Yes, the way she sort of looks to the other two, and the blonde woman sort of nods and gives her like a go ahead sort of gesture. And she said, "Yes, the way the ladies have explained it to me, they've always been a group of three based on the fates from the old tales. They have Clotho is the youngest, who is beginnings. They have Lachesis, who is the middle and continuance, and then they have Atropos, and she gestures at the older woman, who is the endings. And that, from what they tell me, they were once three, and they lost their youngest member, unfortunately, quite some time ago, and they were looking for a replacement, and someone who would, from what they explained to me, someone who was young and full of the fires of youth, but had also been acquainted with the prospect of an early death, which obviously you saw how ill I was when last you saw me. They deemed that I was amply qualified, and they've been showing me such amazing and terrible things. It hardly seems like it's only been a couple of nights since they took me. I've seen more in the last couple of nights than I ever saw in all my years previous, and some of it was wonderful and some of it was terrible and fearful, but I would not change it for anything. After all, what were my options? To linger on for a few weeks painfully and watch as my body failed me, and my father was unable to do anything, and he slowly withered away himself for fear and grief. Whereas now I'm made whole again, and a whole new world is open in front of me, and my father has rediscovered his faith, and he believes I've gone to a better place, which in a certain sense he is right. but at least he is comforted and he can move on with his life. And well, I could not have asked for more, really.
I'm pleased to see you well. But I do wonder, how come you find yourselves here?
The old crone says, well, we live here, don't we?
That would be a reason, would it not?
At which point, Lachesis, the blonde-haired woman, says, yes, we make our home on this island. As I'm sure you can imagine, given what this island is, to those skilled in the arts, but who are perhaps less encumbered by morality, this place is an obvious one for them to find raw materials and cause other mischief. In nights long past, the Marai, our group, were greatly respected, and it was our duty to ensure the sanctity of this island. Back in those days, when we were 3, as we are now again. But our youngest member, Clotho, is still learning. And our influence has faded over the years we've been 2. But we still cleave to our duty, and we make it our responsibility to ensure that no one interferes with the sanctity of this island. As I'm sure you're aware, being skilled in the arts yourself, the gathering of such relics and such fetters and ties that bind can be both a powerful law to those who are skilled in the art, but also a great danger.
Well, as you have discovered, me and my associate here were drawn to a particular grave site here. I wonder if you might know about the more perplexing attributes of this sarcophagus here, and perhaps the remnants of the man interred within.
At which point Lachesis says, well, I can tell you that, as far as I'm aware, Palladio, the architect, did not linger in this world as an unquiet shade. He passed on to whatever that fate is that awaits after this life, when you've truly laid down the burden of this life. The end fate cannot even be seen by the wisest of our kind. However, from my understanding, in the days of the Great Plague, the amount of death that occurred in the city, the dead were piled high in the streets. They filled the waterways and clogged them with decaying bodies. Disease was everywhere. Death seemed to stalk the street like an actual presence. And I'm sure you can imagine how that affected the barrier in Venice. It was reduced to almost nothing. The spirits, some of them twisted by pain, by loss, by disease, by anger, were able to influence this world almost as easily as if they were still alive. The barrier between the world of the living and the dead was shredded. In places it was reduced to almost nothing. Some of our extended family were able to influence the architect when he rebuilt the city, and they conceived of creating a maze-like replica of the city that exists in a space below Venice itself. those spirits that linger in Venice feel themselves drawn into this replica of the city, rather than menace the city itself. For although the barrier has recovered somewhat since the days of the Great Plague, it is a slow process, and there are still areas of the city where the barrier is extremely thin. Unfortunately, it was beyond the power of even the most powerful members of our extended family at the time to repair that. The best they could do was create this maze to draw spirits away from the city itself, so that the barrier might heal itself naturally, if one can call such things natural.
It's a trap for the soul to sequester it away.
I suppose you could call it that. There are those spirits who, by various measures or particular strengths or drives, can resist the pull of the Undercity for an amount of time. But if, as time goes on, as they become more distant from their history, inevitably they will be pulled into the Undercity and away from those they might harm who still live in the mortal world. At which point the old crone goes, "Yeah, if anything it works too well." Well, yes, there is that.
Are we speaking of another Shadowlands? Or is this a thing under the water somewhere?
It's not fully in the Shadowlands, but it exists in another space. I suppose the nearest analogy I can give, says Lacases, is it's sort of like a waiting room where the souls of the dead can wait until they eventually pass on to whatever exists afterwards. But the waiting room has been fashioned after the likeness of Venice in an attempt to provide them with some familiar surroundings.
Yeah, keep the soul pacified.
Indeed. After all, as I'm sure you are aware, the strength of restless spirits comes from their emotions, their anger, their fury, or in some cases their blind incomprehension that they are indeed dead. So providing them with familiar surroundings, it was thought that would provide a balm for their fury, or it would at least cause them to not strive so much against their fate. Unfortunately, as Atropos had said, it was a daring plan, but not one that had been attempted before. And if anything, the labyrinth works a little too well.
Have I disrupted the design?
No,
Gesture at
no.
the open.
No, I don't believe so. There are places in Venice that are close enough to the waiting room, let's call it, or the labyrinth if you prefer, where if one has the correct skills and knowledge, one could theoretically, physically walk into the labyrinth. The sarcophagus of the architect, whose designs are instrumental in creating it, is one such place. Occasionally, when these places come into contact with someone who has been, shall we say, touched by the world of the dead, there can be brief flare-ups where you may catch a glimpse into the labyrinth itself, but without the correct arts and knowledge, such flare-ups are brief. However, they can be sensed by those who are particularly attuned to the world of energy gestures at Atropos, this sort of hunched hag-like figure, which, when we sensed it, we decided to travel here and find out what was going on. Like I say, you were in no real danger, but if a person with the correct knowledge were attempting to enter the labyrinth here, that could have unforeseen effects. So, as we are, I suppose, custodians of a type for this island, we decided to come and investigate. But we are relieved to see that it is nothing too serious.
Yes, I suppose I have stumbled onto your area of interest following one of mine. We do apologize, and please meet my associate, Franco. He is a reclusive type, very, very odd to our kind, no doubt.
At which point the crone sort of looks over in your direction, Franco. Yeah, all right, fella.
Yeah, I'll give her a puzzled look.
It is very clear in my mind that Franco must be rather puzzled by what we are discussing at the moment, as he is not in the family yet. He is like unto a distant cousin. He is to be welcome, and
at which point the crone says, "Well, you getting an argument from me? Handsome-looking fella like that."
yes,
And she gives you like quite a lewd sort of like, you think it's a wink, but like you can't really tell because it's under this like obsidian mask. But you definitely see one of her eyes like go.
It's definitely something that's never happened to me since. Look at this guy.
Check him out.
She says, yes, well, at which point Lachesis, the blonde woman, says, well, don't worry about entering the island. Although we make our home here and we are custodians of it, it was long ago established when we were set as guardians over this island that anyone is free to travel here. It is an island of the dead and for remembering the dead. Anyone, human, kindred, whatever, is free to come here, and as long as they are not attempting to interfere with the rest of the people who sleep here, we do not seek to bar their way, nor anything like that. We are only here to prevent disturbances, and I don't mean the accidental disturbance that you made. That was an easy mistake to make. Anyone with the art could have triggered that, and there is no harm done. We will replace the sarcophagus lid. It is an easy mistake to make for one who is as young as yourself, but there is no harm done. So we're mainly here to make sure that those who are skilled in the art do not seek to take advantage of the rich raw materials that are interred within this island.
yes, well, mea culpa. Myself and my associate would be departing, getting out of your hair.
No, that is fine. Remain as long as you will. As we have said, if people are not interfering with the rest of those who sleep on the island, we do not attempt to monitor or police people's comings or goings, whether they be mortal or kindred.
Very good. I shall have to come and see you more often now that I know that you are here.
Of course, we we are spending a great deal of our time tutoring Clotho at the moment and trying to get her up to speed, but we are always happy to talk with the family and other kindred. Back when our influence was and our renown was greater, we were often consulted by scholars and those with an interest in the art. But as I say, we have been two for far too long, and our grandeur is somewhat faded compared to the knights of old. But we hope, and she sort of smiles quite warmly, looking at young Cara, or Clotho as she now seems to be called. We hope that now we are three again, we may once more eventually rise to those heights that we once occupied, and the respect we held within the family.
I take my mask off, put it back in the briefcase, and say,
Ah, will we be seeing you at the gathering?
Yes, we have been invited, and we intend to present Clotho to the rest of the family. I know that we don't follow any formalised traditions of presentation like some of the once great kindred societies, but we still believe it's of benefit for Clotho to get to know her extended family, and for them to know her, particularly in these troublesome nights.
We shall look forward to meeting you again then.
At which point the crone says, "Oh, we shall. I take it your handsome friend's coming along to the family meeting then?"
He is, but he is to be unmolested during the duration of the gathering. As he is
unmolested. He's young enough to be my grandson, but my great grandson.
He is not of the blood, but it was given for us to understand that the extended family is welcome, and
yes, that's right.
As such, he should be given a moderately warm welcome.
Which, when the crone sort of suddenly turning a little bit more serious, says, "Well, yes, and obviously I'm quite happy for your young friend to come along, as you said. Extended coterie mates are, of course, welcome. I presume you got an invite, the same as we did. But I should tell you, I apologise if I'm being presumptuous, young man, but I'm assuming you're one of the children of Nosferatu."
You would be correct.
Wow. I would just say to you, be a little bit on your guard at the gathering. I'm sure that none of the family would attempt to, having invited you, would attempt anything untoward. However, when a certain section of our family, let's say, held sway over this city, let us say that your clan did not always receive a very warm welcome in Venice. There, and she sort of leans in a bit, sort of conspiratorially, and her voice lowers a little bit. In fact, back when I was much younger, before many sad things happened, but I won't go into that. Back in my younger days, there used to be a great, I suppose, gathering, you could say, of your clan who lived in this city. Many of them lived in the old flooded basements and canalways that run below the city. However, at a certain point, those who were in charge of our family at the time, when our clan went by the name of Giovanni, and she, you see her face sort of twist up a bit underneath the mask. at one point in time, they decided that if you weren't of their family, you had no place in Venice. I know that my branch of the clan and many others were either forced to flee or hide. And from what I believe, many of your clan who were here either went to ground and disappeared beneath the waters or were slain. Now, most of those who were responsible in our clan have met their own ends and have paid for their crimes, but there are still some Giovanni around who may be old enough to remember those nights, and maybe, shall we say, not well disposed towards your clan. Although I personally have no issue with your clan, and I think it's, to be honest, it's refreshing to see to see Venice once more opening up a little bit more to kindred outside our family. But as I say, just be a little bit on your guard. Given our family's recent reorganisation, rather like with the sarcophagus, there is a tendency occasionally for old grudges and hardships to flare briefly to life again. But I hope that's not the case.
I should take it noted that I shall be on guard. Thank you for your warning.
No, not a problem.
To be absolutely clear, though, Franco, every segment of the family has tried to kill almost every other segment of the family.
Oh, that's true, says the crone. I could tell you some stories.
You will fit quite well in being on your guard, as everyone else is. Me being what I am, I already have a long list, no doubt, of my ostensible family, thinking that it's a shame that I got away and now it's not polite to kill me. So,
yeah, he's not wrong there, says the crone. I mean, there's many branches of our family that were also on the receiving end of the Giovanni's crimes and were forced to flee or disguise ourselves. And as I say, while most of them have met their end as part of our restructuring, and most of the younger kindred, whether they be of Giovanni or 𝐝𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐨𝐲 descent, as we're now known in these modern nights, seem desirous to put all that unpleasantness behind them and sort of get along with the rest of the family. I'm sure there are great swathes of our current clan who would be entirely sympathetic with what your ancestral clan members, let's call them, went through, because we experienced it ourselves. I was forced to spend a great deal of time in a place, and I don't mean this with insult, in a place that you could barely imagine, hiding from my own family for fear that I be wiped out.
So it will be quite a night overall. But let us, I'm sorry, we must really be going.
Oh, of course, I understand. Well, if you should ever wish to come back and speak with us, Lakeisa says, we are most often to be found there, particularly at the moment as we chew to cloth out. So normally at any time, at least one of us is present on this island. Anyone is welcome here, and if you do wish to speak to us, you are of course welcome, either of you.
It is good to know.
If we're leaving at that point, then as we walk out, I was gonna say, so what was that was dragging you across the room?
It is. Oh, I was asking if you believe in God. The next question might have been, do you believe in supernatural power other than God? It's all the same depending on who you ask. This was someone evoking something. It's the mechanism that they were discussing. It's a pressure valve, if you excuse my poor wording, for the immense death that occurred originally during the plague. It's a sewer for bothersome deceased folk.
So, did you see what you wanted to see? Did you find what you wanted to
I
find?
didn't quite know what I was going to see, but yes, quite enlightening. Definitely worth it. Thank you for accompanying me. I would not have been able to shift that rock by myself, and I would have had to resort to some rather unsavory means.
That's not a problem.
Hopefully, you have enjoyed a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of whatever it is that we are.
Well, as the old crone said, I am young to this way of life and forever learning.
Yes, well, I really have to go and eat. Would you mind being on lookout for one more moment?
Not at all.
Just and as we go, I'll try and pick out a location somewhat off to the side so that Franco could be standing there on lookout while I dig up a grave.
Yeah, that's not a problem. You keep a lookout while you go to one of the poorer sort of areas.
Yeah.
Radio digs up a grave, like a fairly recent one.
Yeah, and here we go. Corpse blood hunt. Hey, we don't freak out. Frankie doesn't have to witness that.
Okay, how much are you taking?
Yeah, I am taking 2.
Okay, yep. So as we said previously, obviously it's already dead, so you're not going to kill the person. But because you've only taken 2, you've not damaged the corpse in any way that's obvious that it's been fed on by a vampire, and you replace it back in the grave and sort of push the soil back over it, and as the cold sort of dead blood settles in what remains of your stomach, you feel the gnawing edge of your hunger slowly start to recede.
And I come back up, brushing my hands. I wipe out, congealed bit of gore from my lip.
Thank you, Franco. You have been invaluable tonight.
Certainly an eye-opener.
So how do you find Venice?
As we as we leave the cemetery of weirdos.
I guess we'll head back to their haven. If you don't have
Yeah, I
plans.
suppose
Find out where Sonia's got up to, how she got on.
Okay. At this point, can I ask you both to make me a wits awareness roll?
Wits awareness. I keep doing this the wrong way around. No, I wasn't.
Well then.
That's fine. 5 successes, surprisingly, is not a bestial failure. Okay, so as you're both walking and you're heading back towards the boat, and Aurelia saying, so, how are you finding Venice? You're making general chit-chat. You both become aware that a shadowy figure, seemingly a guy wearing sort of fairly like standard sort of poor man's like clothing, has tried, and I say tried being the operative word because you've both sort of clocked him, has tried to stealthily like come out from behind one of these gravestones, and is basically like coming up behind you. You can see he's like lifting what looks to be like a shovel, and he appears to be like coming up, trying to sneak up behind Aurelio, and he's like with this spade. But you've both clocked. He's trying to be stealthy, but you've both clocked him. Obviously, with your mad amount of successes, like he's not yet realised that you've seen him. So it's down to, but you guys have basically got the drop on him. So it's up to you guys how you want to play this.
I want to say Franco's, because Franco's clearly got the drop on this guy. I want to say, like, Franco, if you got something you want to do, you go ahead, because you're quick on the draw.
We're still in the graveyard.
Yep.
Did you say? Yeah. And obviously it's quiet elsewhere. No one else about. I assume.
Yep. You were deliberately in like an isolated, poor area of the graveyard, so Aurelio could feed without drawing attention. Yep. So yeah, you look around. You have a quick look around, but obviously subtly, so you're like not giving the game away, and you can see there's nobody about. Which is probably why you've clocked this guy so easily.
Yeah, all we've made out is it's a man with a shovel. That's
he's got like a, those sort of like flat cap sort of style hats with the big brim. He's got one of them on. He's wearing like your normal sort of like rough hewn like shirt and working man's trousers, but like cheap shoes. Which you see all this with your like mad amount of successes, and he's carrying like a big heavy old like metal spade like you might use to dig graves, and he's lifting it and like trying to creep up behind you, obviously intent on like tonking Aurelio around the back of the head with it. But you guys have clocked him coming. Probably you've seen him coming from like a mile off. Aurelio spotted him as he's got a bit closer, but you've both got ample time to like react to this.
Yeah, I want to pick a good spot where particularly well covered, shaded, to not give away sort of main features of my face, etc., and just spin round and just confront him. But like I say, in a vantage point where I can clearly see him, but he's got not as good a sight as me.
Okay, yeah, you turn round, you can now see him more clearly. One thing that strikes you as odd is he appears to have like a strip of cloth over his eyes, and as you turn round, he swings the spade at the back of Aurelio's head. You can easily dodge should you wish, Aurelio, because you know it's coming, and he's not like doing it with the superhuman quickness or anything. He's just literally like swinging it, expecting you not to have seen him.
Yeah, I'll get away.
Yeah, you just sidestep it easily, and as he swings the spade at Aurelio, he looks directly at you, even though he's got this like cloth sort of bandana over his eyes. Looks directly at you, Franco, and he's like, "Quickly, my lord, run! I'll hold him off."
And do I think this is the same guy as before?
No.
Although
he does also look a bit like a derelict and a little bit sort of trampy, for want of a better word, but it's clearly not the same guy. Although the other guy was blind, and this guy does have something over his eyes.
Yeah, I'm going to walk over and grab the spade off of him.
Yeah, he's literally like clanged it into the ground as like Aurelio's just like taking a sidestep, and you easily just like snatch it off of it. As you grab it, he doesn't even resist you taking it. He just pretty much lets it go.
I just say, I'm in no danger. What makes you think so?
At which point he, almost like he's worried for you, he like grabs hold of your sleeve, but not in like I'm trying to assault you way, like as in he's trying to like get you out of here. And he's like quickly, my lord, we've got to get you out of here. They'll hunt you down and slay you. We have to escape. I have to get you to a place of safety.
Where are you proposing that we go?
He says, I'll take you to the other masters, my lord.
The other masters?
Yes, of course, my lord. The masters have the masters have us looking out. Should any of you once more fall into the hands of these devils, and he like wags a finger in Aurelio's direction.
Why'd you call me my lord and not by my normal name?
It is my lord. It is not for a lovely servant like myself to speak with undue familiarity to such a great lord as yourself.
I do not recognise you. What is your name?
At which point I turn to my handy random name generator, because that's how we do.
And I've obviously got no idea who this bloke is.
No.
No.
At which point he tells you that his name is Severino Agrello. Says, yes, my lord. It has been the honour of my family to serve great lords such as yourself for many years.
I still feel that you may have me mistaken for someone else.
No, although I may be blind, my lord, through the blessings of the great masters such as yourself. I see more clearly now than I once did, and we have passed down the ancient stories of our families when the great masters previously were set upon by such devils and were very nearly wiped out. Only a handful of them surviving, hiding and rebuilding their strength. But those of us who remained loyal, we continued to serve the great masters. And they told us, yes, that if ever we saw any of their kind fall into the clutches of these devils, and again he like wags a finger in Aurelio's direction, that we were to set them free and to convey them to a place of safety with the other great masters like yourself, my lord. And he sort of bows a little bit.
And I assume my sense of the beast is not like tingling.
Again, you're sensing a faint sort of echo in this fellow, but it's nowhere near as strong as a kindred. You might assume that maybe he's a ghoul or something similar. He's obviously got some sort of low level of like supernatural fluence in him, but it's nowhere near like a full vampire. Like you say, he might be a slightly empowered ghoul servant of another vampire or something similar.
Well, maybe we should go to this place you talk of and see if we can get to the bottom of this.
He's still sort of like gently like tugging at your sleeve, but obviously like, he's not got the strength to like make you go anywhere you don't want to go. But he's like, yes, my lord, quickly, I must get you to a place of safety. I must take you to the others. We must escape before this devil. And again, he sort of waves his hand in Aurelio's direction, turns his dark magics upon you, and seeks to slay you, my lord. And he's like,
so I'll start to go with him, but I'll give the signal, like sort of follow. I'll put my hand behind the guy's back and sort of, follow me, please.
Okay, not a problem. So you're sort of being led away by this strange sort of blind vagabond who sort of like seems very deferential to you, like always referring to you as my lord. And Aurelia, presumably you're sort of following at a distance.
Yeah, at a sort of moderate distance, so that he can't readily hear that I'm coming.
Okay, so while that's going on, I'm going to jump back over to Sonia. What's Sonia up to?
I'm just going back to the haven.
Okay,
In
no
the shower, I've just beaten somebody to death and beating somebody else for blood. So
Yeah, no problems. You've been back to the Haven. You showered. Obviously, all this is this stuff's taken some time. After a while, like the other two haven't come back to the Haven.
okay, I shall give Franco a call because Aurelio's useless at answering the little box.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so it's probably not strictly accurate for timelines, but as you're being sort of led away by this guy, Franco, your mobile phone starts going. If you look at it, you'll see it's one of the numbers that Sonia uses.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll answer it.
Okay, so Franco answers the phone. Now, bear in mind, as you're having this conversation on the phone, in the background, Sonia, you'll be able to hear this like slightly panicked voice going, "Quickly, my lord, we must make haste. I must get you away from this devil to a place of safety." So as you're having this conversation, you'll be hearing that in the background, or variations of that. Okay, so
And I'll make sure that Sonia can hear that as well.
Yep. Okay,
I'm
so
sort of trying to hold it away so it's...
Oh, he's found you again.
Yes, I shall not be too long. I'll be heading home soon.
Okay, where's Aurelio?
I finished our business for this evening. Maybe you can, and I'll try and get Aurelio's attention that I'm on the phone, so he like wakes up and thinks, "Hang on."
that's not difficult to do because I was like very obviously following you and trying to keep an eye on you.
Yeah.
So he'll see you on the phone and probably be able to hear what you're saying.
So obviously the conversation is to sort of, not alert this guy too much.
Do I need to come and get you?
Maybe you should give one of the others a ring, and
All right.
I'll see you home later.
Speak in a minute.
And I'll sort of hang up.
I'll phone Aurelio.
Yeah. So, because there's a setup, the connection is established as he fishes it out of the.
There you go. Maybe you finally cracked the secret to getting Aurelio on the phone. You just have to have somebody else say, like, "Aurelio, someone is about to phone you. Look at
Get
your
on the
phone now."
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
I'll get it.
Aurelio, are you in trouble?
Trying to remember.
So it appears that there is a blinded man
Another one.
who's very intent on leading Franco to safety somehow, away from yours truly. And we are presently trying to determine where that is. It doesn't seem that Franco is familiar with this individual, which...
But Franco's fairly new, isn't he?
Yes, but I thought, wasn't there a crazy man at the
Yeah, a
door
blind
there?
one.
Different man.
This, going by what the bloke was saying last time he came here, Master, you've got to come with me.
Same thing.
Is there any additional to that? Or?
I am the devil, it appears, which is a great disappointment to me after my years of devotion to Christ.
Can you tell if it's a ghoul or not, Aurelio? Would explain the sudden
It can
burst of speed.
It can distinguish Franco and myself, so I would guess with a blindfold, no less. I would guess that is more than a just good guess from a...
Maybe it's just the Nosferatu trying to protect the Nosferatu.
It truly seems that this man is unhinged in some way.
Okay, but what I'm saying here, Aurelio, is maybe you shouldn't get too involved. I don't think you can fight a nest full of Nosferatu.
Oh, heavens, no. No, I am not a violent man.
You know, follow as long as you feel comfortable, and then I'll start heading in your general direction.
Very good.
And I'll just, point out where we're seemingly headed, like the general direction.
And I'm going
Absolutely
to
fine.
text Franco saying, "Is this your family?"
I'll just reply, I don't know who this is. I've got no idea who this
Maybe
is.
you should ask and make it clear that you want to know if this is your blood.
Well, once we seem to be leading
And
somewhere.
I'm going to text blood in big capital letters with about 5 exclamation marks after it.
Nice.
Where is he leading us?
He appears to be leading you back to the shores of the island of Saint-Michel, and as you sort of get nearer the edge of this man-made island, you can see there is a small one of these sort of like water taxis, these like barges parked there, although this appears to be like a more sort of traditional, like old school like riverboat rather than the sort of more modern sort of touristy style ones, and he appears to be sort of like pulling you towards that.
I don't know if have we covered this before. Is there like districts that are more Nosferatu?
There's no sort of like Nosferatu district, effectively, no.
Yeah, there's no different clans. They do
No.
intermingle to an extent, but are they more sort of prominent in one area than
Well, I mean,
others?
as we've said previously, when the 𝐝𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐨𝐲 were known as the Giovanni clan, they pretty much like ruled the city with like an iron fist. It was like if you weren't a Giovanni in the city, you were being spied on by the Giovanni, and you were probably like either going to be encouraged to leave or you would probably just disappear. Whereas since the clan have like seem to have had some sort of restructure, you don't know the details, and they've sort of like re-emerged as the 𝐝𝐞𝐬𝐿𝐴, and seemingly at some point during that, like a lot of their sort of older members have like disappeared or been killed. They now appear to be like a little more open to having non-𝐝𝐞𝐬𝐿 kindred in the city, although clearly like the 𝐝𝐞𝐬𝐿 are still the sort of like majority of kindred in the city. But
okay, so
they don't sort of portion. It's not like the Camarilla where they portion out different areas to like different clans and whatever. They just seem to basically be like, as long as you're not interfering with their like business and you're doing your own thing, they're quite happy to like leave you to your own devices. But obviously if you start causing a problem to like the tourist industry or like the city as a whole or their interests, that's when they get involved. But other than that, they're just sort of happy for like kindred do what they want. I mean, you don't know to what extent they're being spied on, because obviously from dealing with like Aurelio and stuff like that they've got sort of abilities that deal with ghosts that most kindred can't even perceive. So it's quite possible they're still spying on non-𝐝𝐞𝐬𝐿 kindred without them knowing it. But
okay, well, when we get on the boat, so there's just the two of us, and looking at my text message, I'm gonna say to this guy, "Are we going to see my blood brothers?"
he says, "Yes, yes, my lord. I'm taking you to the other great masters."
And where is it we're going?
He starts poling the boat across the waters, and he appears to be heading towards S01E04, which is it used to be like a big industrial sort of complex, and since about 1980s there's been like a few there's like some architectural exhibitions there. There's like a few art museums there. It's basically being regenerated at the moment. But like I say, it used to be like a big industrial area, and there's big sort of contained like waterways in there. And like I say, he's basically sort of clicked on the wrong thing as I always do. yeah, he's basically sort of like poling the boat in this direction.
Okay. And why have you only come to find me now?
He says
Been here quite some time.
He says, "Oh, it is not my place to question the will of the great masters, my lord. But we were told that, by another member of my family, that he had discovered one of the masters being held prisoner by two of those devils." Another member of our family did come and attempt to free you from the stronghold of the devils, but he was unable to do so. The rest of us have been on the lookout for an opportunity to free you from their grasp, my lord. Begging your pardon.
I'm sure I'm not in as much danger as you think.
By this point in time, you've got to basically what is like a large sort of artificial sort of sandbank, although it's actually made of concrete, but it's there to sort of block the extremes of sort of tidal pressure from sort of hitting 𝐻𝐶, and your new friend, for want of a better term, slowly starts sort of slowing the boat down as you approach this artificial sandbank. Now, obviously, Aurelio, you've seen them get into this boat and start heading away. And obviously, that's a bit of an issue for you, sort of following at a distance. What are you doing as they sort of get in this boat and they start heading across the waters, obviously in the direction of 𝐻𝐶?
I'll not follow on the boat.
Okay.
Is there a location where I could sequester myself for like 15 minutes? Somewhere nearby where I am currently?
Well, basically on 𝐛𝐮𝐲𝐿, they sort of went to this edge of 𝐛𝐮𝐲𝐿, got in a boat, and then they've sort of sailed, then they've sort of paddled across to here.
Yeah.
So obviously there's this sort of area of water between where you were and where they're going. There's no real like solid space in between that you could sort of hide yourself in. There is this large expanse of water separating the areas.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're not exactly in any danger of drowning, obviously, but
No. So this is land.
It's basically, yeah, it's like a large artificial concrete like sandbank to stop the extremes of like tidal force during high water.
And they're going around it because they're going to 𝐻𝐶.
Well, they actually seem to have just gone. They actually seem to be coming to a stop near this artificial sandbank.
Right. I mean, I need to get to a place where I can be on ground for 15 minutes. So I guess 𝐛𝐮𝐲𝐿.
Yeah, you can be stood on the edge of 𝐛𝐮𝐲𝐿. I mean, there's nothing in between, so you can see across to where their boat is.
And
I mean, like I say, it's less than half a mile away.
I think when I see that we're going to that instead of the sort of mainland, I'll send a message, like just a text message to both Sonia and well, yeah, I'll send it to both of them, I guess. Just saying, you know, we've gone to this like concrete bank just to the north of 𝐻𝐶.
𝐻𝐶, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've both got that text. Obviously, we know Aurelio is here. We know that Franco's here at the minute. Now, obviously, you've been at the communal haven, which is here, Sonia.
Yep.
but you've sort of got a bit of time while the boat's moving and after you've received this text. So where do you want to head to?
I will head to get Aurelio.
All right. Well, yeah. If we organize that, then that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so you presume, are you like hiring a boat or?
I will phone my contact and call in a favour.
Yeah, not a problem. You meet up with a somewhat less than reputable person who's able to like provide you with a boat, and basically tells you to sort of leave it near 𝐝𝐞𝐬𝐿𝐥𝐝, sort of about here. When you finish with it, they're like, just tie it up.
Okay.
And like basically ask no questions. But you've got it for as long as you want for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, I will head over and get Aurelio then.
Okay, not a problem. You two, so Sonia heads across, picks you up, Aurelio. In the meantime, Franco, the boat has stopped at this artificial sandbank, and the blind man who's been poling across, he reaches under one of like the little sort of like, you know, like plank seats that you have in these sort of boats. He like reaches underneath the plank seat, and you see him like lift up a Hessian sack, and whatever's in it is obviously quite heavy, because he like grunts a little bit as he like lifts it up, and he says, "Well, I should give you this, my lord, so that you can go down to see the other great masters." And as he sort of offers it out to you with the other hand, he like pulls the sack off the object, and you can see he's basically holding like a big metal anchor, and he sort of holds it out to you.
So I take the anchor.
And he says, "Would you like me to stay here, my lord, so that I can convey you elsewhere once you have?" And he sort of gestures at the water. Once you've finished with meeting the other great masters.
So he's gesturing to the water, just well,
like
basically
outside
where
of where
the
the
boat
boat
is.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever join us?
Oh, alas, no, my lord. It's not for a humble servant like myself to enter the abode of the great masters.
Well, maybe you should get out of sight and come back for me in a little while.
Yes, very good, my lord. How long would you like me to wait before I return?
Give it an hour.
As you wish, my lord. And he basically starts sort of poling off the boat back towards Costello, it looks like. Obviously, Sonia and Aurelio, you're sort of halfway there, basically. And you see, presumably Franco, you've sort of like stepped out onto the bank.
Yeah, I'm sort of waiting for my phone or some sort of sign of contact with the others.
Aurelio and Sonia, you see this same sort of blind guy on the boat, sort of poling it away from this artificial sandbank, and you can see Franco stood on this concrete embankment, looking probably a little bit puzzled, holding this like big sort of metal anchor.
I'll phone Franco now the boat's left.
Yep, your phone goes off.
Franco?
Yep.
I think you meant to jump in the water, mate.
It didn't seem the cleverest of ideas.
You're not going to drown.
Well, I realise that, but I don't quite know what I'm getting myself into, so I thought I'd wait in case.
I imagine it's clan business.
Well, it's the first time they've made contact with me, if it is, since I've been here. But I obviously bow down to your wisdom in these matters.
I don't think myself and Aurelio should come ashore. That's probably going to be a bad idea.
Well, if that's what you think is wise.
We'll just bob around in the boat for a while, and you can go for a swim.
Okay. Well, I'll just hide my phone on the shore somewhere, because I doubt very much that that's going to be a waterproof device.
No, not back in 2012.
Sony Xperia.
And I didn't bring my little waterproof pouch, so yeah, I just put that somewhere,
Okay.
and I'll grab hold of this anchor, and I'll sort of step in where this guy gestured, or walk in. I guess it's shallow to start with, is it, or is it a sort of instant drop?
It starts shallow, but then like when you get to the edge of the embankment, it drops off pretty suddenly.
Yeah. Well, I'll just
Okay.
go to roughly where he was gesturing.
So Franco, holding this metal anchor, takes a few steps into the water, sort of heading down the shallow incline of this artificial concrete embankment. He slowly sort of moves, the water goes up to his knees, and then as he steps off the edge of the embankment, weighed down by the anchor, he suddenly just like drops down into the water with a splash, and obviously no bubbles, and disappears below the turbulent dark surface of the water, and is lost to your sight. And that is where we're going to end the session for this evening.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for playing, guys. I hope that was okay for you all.
Yeah, good mate.
And obviously we will pick up next session, which I believe is in a couple of weeks, and we will carry on from where we've left off, with Franco travelling down underwater to see these great masters that we spoke about. Obviously, thank you to my wonderful players and to anyone who watches this now or in the future. Obviously, we'll talk about XP, and we can chat a bit about what you want to do next time. But again, just thanks to my wonderful players, and we're going to end the stream now. So hopefully we'll catch you for the next one.